Greetings, friends. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach. Welcome to Soul Empowerment. This is our episode number 44, and our topic title today is Discern, Determine, Decide. Yeah, what does that mean for you as you think about those words? Well, we're going to find out more about that as we go along, and we're going to take a deep dive into this idea of what I like to call conscious choice. And I'm sure that you're going to find some of the information very, very interesting, maybe even a little bit challenging. And of course, we wouldn't be any value at all if we weren't challenging you in some way, right? Anyway, before we proceed, I'd like to just go around my little circle here and have my co-hosts introduce themselves. And today I'm going to start with you, Scott.
Hello, everybody. Scott Holmes, I'm a quantum energy healer up here in Boston, and we bring issues that you may not want to hear, but really can use to help you on your journey. And it will be thought provoking, but a little bit challenging, but a lot of fun. So come on along for the ride.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott. And Sarah, I'm seeing
Hi.
your grin there. It's time for you to say hello.
Hi, I'm Sarah or Sarah Jane, whichever takes your fancy. Um, I'm in the UK. I work with Reiki and sound energy in the form of what I call vocal Reiki. I do an awful lot of channeling in many different ways, but the Reiki and the sound are definitely channeled because the sound is toning, so it's the use of the voice. And I use that voice in many ways, as I said, as a channel, but also here on this program, on a couple of other programs. We're here to spread the word, aren't we? To sort of give people food for thought, to sort of support people sort of on their journey, and hopefully make it a little quicker and easier than our own has been.
Yeah, that does seem like a really good plan, doesn't it? We've learned some things, sometimes the hard way, and we would like other people to learn them without necessarily going through the brick walls that sometimes we had to go through. Yeah, thank you for that, Sarah. Gail, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, hello. I'm Gail Nowak. I'm located in Massachusetts, not far from Scott, and I am on a mission to redefine leadership for those who are destined to be leaders in the new earth. I specialize particularly in guiding new earth leaders to show up, speak up, and shine confidently so that we can all uplift humanity with our own unique magic. And I do that through an energy first approach and healing centered coaching and retreats that transform the way you communicate and connect with your audience. And I'm really passionate about and I stand for soul deep transformation. It's part of the reason why I love this panel and joining my beautiful colleagues here every month, because this is all about soul empowerment and hearing and learning and receiving the wisdom of sometimes our hard won transformations. So I'm excited for today.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Gail. Now you said a phrase with three S's, and I was just waiting to dive in and repeat those back, but one of the S's slipped out of my mind. Show up, speak up, and shine. Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I like that. I always like phrases that are alliterative because they tend to be easier to remember, and especially in groups of three. You know, uh, so in my case, my work is really about helping people to transform their lives into works of art in which they get to experience purpose, passion, and peace. So there's my triple letter alliteration. And by the way, I want to just say for the people who are watching this, every one of us here is a coach of one form or another. And although we don't generally promote ourselves all that much, I would like to just invite you, if you are feeling called to to reach out and ask for some support in some way, we're all available. You know, we all have websites you can go to, and we all have places where you can get a hold of us. So to be a little different this time, I'm going to ask everybody to put their website link into the chat so that anybody who's watching this can capture that and maybe reach out or something. So yeah, this idea of soul empowerment, and I've shared this before. Remember that the soul doesn't actually need to be empowered. The truth is, all we need to do is get the other stuff out of the way so that the soul can just simply bring forth its beautiful, magnificent, loving energy into the world. And so the idea here is, you know, our topic titles all talk about some of the things that might be getting in the way of allowing our souls to shine, right? And sometimes those titles can be a little provocative. Sometimes they can be maybe a little challenging. But the whole point here is to raise awareness to the point where you understand for yourself when your own ego mind is getting in the way, and learning how to maybe quiet it, bring it down into serenity, bring it down into a sense of being more of a co-pilot rather than the pirate that wants to run the ship, sort of thing. If you can do that, then the soul begins to lead for you. But the soul has no requirement or need or obligation to stand out in front. It doesn't need that. It just simply is there, and it's ready whenever you want that opportunity. And that's what this whole program is all about, helping you to find ways of peeling away those layers, the armor, the shields, and everything else that you might be putting on to protect yourself, so that the true you can shine forth and really, really do something amazing in the world. And that's what we're here to do. So this idea of conscious choice came up during our planning session, and I can't remember the exact reason why it came up, but I know that for me personally, there was some issues going on, and we supported each other and in bringing those issues to some form of resolution. But in the process, we uncovered this idea that sometimes we make choices, or maybe not even choices. Maybe we might not even be aware that we're making these choices. But the fact is, we do things kind of on autopilot. You know, sometimes we're like sleepwalkers, just kind of bouncing around and playing that pachinko game or something, you know. We bump into something, so we take a left, and then we bump into something, we take a right, and you know, we're just kind of letting life bounce us around. And I know myself, I have gone through a lot of that in my life, and I suspect everyone else on the panel has done some of that too, and maybe you have as a viewer. So that's what we're here to talk about today. How much time do we spend in our lives allowing choices to be made for us? Allowing circumstances to dictate, you know, our actions, rather than really raising our awareness and thinking about it. So I'm just going to open the floor and see who feels like diving in first this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, wherever you are.
Okay, I'll dive in. First of all, going back to sort of one of your original comments, you were born an original, don't die a copy. And then there's another saying that says, sort of, everyone else is taken, be yourself. And I think they are perfect. And I don't know, something else has been going on sort of recently, where I've been talking about sort of the brick walls and the barriers that we put up to protect ourselves because of the things that have happened to us in our past. You know, whether it's been very early years, school years, whatever it is, it's something that's happened to us that we haven't known how to deal with. I think that's why we put the barriers up, is maybe because we're too young to understand, to know how to cope with things. And therefore, yes, as you said, David, we go into default. When something crops up that is, it reminds us that could be a mirror image of something that has happened in the past. That's how we dealt with it, so we're going to deal with it again. And it's that old unwanted behaviors that don't serve us any purpose anymore. It's being able to let go of those. It's been being able to stop and look at what has happened. And it's actually, has it got anything to do with you at all? Or is it a comment or something that has been made by somebody else that is about their stuff? But, some people know how to push those buttons in you and to get you to react. And sort of, because I don't know how many of you have read the book, The Celestine Prophecies, and they talk about those people who feed off your energy.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about the people that you spend time with, and are there those leeches? Sorry, I'm going to be that blunt because they are, that they know exactly how to push your buttons to get you to react so they can feed off your energy. And they have to give up when you stop reacting. Because when you stop reacting, they can't feed off you anymore. And your life becomes way more peaceful. And so there's a whole lot to think about with this. And it is about that discern, determine, decide, isn't it? It's that freedom of choice. What's just happened? Is this something for me to even be reacting to, involved in? Or should I just walk away? And
Beautiful.
there are times we have to walk away. And that even can mean family. But it's about self-preservation, but not a self-preservation with barriers and walls. It's self-preservation for peace and
Beautiful.
calm, and comfort in your own life.
Yeah, nice. Scott, looks like you
So,
wanted to say something.
yeah, when we were talking about this, Gayla brought up discernment. And I think that's what really spurned most of this on, was discerning. And it's the hardest part about all of this process, because how do you figure out if you should have to make a choice? How do you figure out if it's your problem? Is it somebody else's? Sorry, you brought up pushing the buttons. I have my second daughter, since the time she was very, very young, I think had a game of it. And through her teenage years, I would come in the room, and I think she would make a bet about how quickly she could get me to rise to the occasion. She would push the right button, and it was absolutely amazing. I think she fed off that, and she had a bit of a game with it. And I didn't get it because I was so busy just trying to be, that I didn't understand it. And when I finally just looked at her and said, "All right, no more," the game stopped. So it's that deciding not to, being engaged. And we all have people in our lives that you see their name on the phone, and you go, "Oh Lord, this is going to be an hour and a half of a black hole." Oh Lord,
That's
you know.
right.
You want to be kind, but you also want to save yourself from that kind of sapping of energy. Um, one of the words that um, I've been told never to use is energy vampire, right? Never
That
use that.
energy
Um,
vampire. I love
Energy
that term.
vampire.
It's very
But
descriptive.
it's very descriptive, and we all know people that they need that validation from other people. They keep pulling it. They keep pulling at you. Um, and the boundaries, as you said, Sarah, the boundaries that we put up, and I in dealing with clients, I call them speed bumps, because people don't like boundaries. They don't like walls. They don't like fences, because well, I don't really want to people to be that far away, but I call them speed bumps, and it's like, okay, someone coming at you has to slow down a little bit, and it's a little dum dum when you hear that dum dum of somebody coming closer to you. You know that there should be a red flag going up going, okay, be careful, hello. And so it's kind of a warning system, an early warning system. And that's not a boundary to keep everybody out, but just to be safe.
Yeah. You know, the idea of a fence, I had this image of me in a house. You know, I've got a house and I've got this fence around the outside. The nice thing about a fence is there's always a gate. So there is a way for people to get in, you know, if they are invited. And so even though we might have this idea that we have to protect ourselves somehow, um, the reality is very often, all of us, I think we all really just want to drop all of those boundaries anyway. We want to be, because the more boundaries we have up, the harder it is for people to see us. And so if we can remove the boundaries, then we can let people see us for who we really are. And we can stand in our sovereignty and really just share that truth. And hopefully be strong enough within ourselves not to react when people make comments about, you know, the fat belly or the I mean, that's just more to love, really. That's all it is. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead, Gail. I wanted to hear what you have to say about this.
So I'm gonna hone in on boundaries, and I want to share an experience that I had. I believe it was last summer. I did a horse experience, and it was for me personally. And I was guided to do this exercise on boundaries.
Did you
And
say a horse experience
a horse
or
experience.
a course experience?
Horse.
Okay.
With the
All right.
large animal, yes.
Right.
So it's in the corral with the horse. His name is Saint. And I was, you know, it was all about having rapport with the horse and leading the horse. Some of my intentions had to do with leadership and boundaries and the topics that we're talking about right now. So one of the exercises was to take this piece of rope and create a boundary with the rope around myself. And then it was to make it clear to the horse where the boundary was. Well, of course, the first go around, the horse just went where the horse wanted to go, right? So the horse can see there's a line in the sand. And so this is how I like to try to remember boundaries for myself, where there's a line in the sand, not a wall, right? So the horse can still see me and I can still see the horse. And really, especially if anybody wants to experience this, like I would highly recommend getting in a corral with a horse, because they're highly intuitive animals and you really need energy mastery in order to communicate with them. Yes, you can use verbal communication with them. My whole experience was all about the energy that I was in. And so I wasn't being serious about my boundaries. And it became very clear to me with this horse that he was walking all over them and he was just being himself. Right. And so I got some instruction from the horse's owner and with the facilitator on different things that I could try so that I could feel that within myself. So in addition to this practice of discerning and determining and deciding, it's less about that protective energy, right? And putting up those walls, which is a completely normal human response when we've been hurt. We don't want to get hurt again, right? You also cut off opportunity and you cut off life when you live that way.
Exactly.
And I feel like that experience with the horse really showed me, and hopefully it resonates with people who are tuning in. It really showed me that I could show up as me, and I needed to be clean and clear in my energy in order to hold those boundaries. Had nothing to do with protecting myself and had everything to do with the fact of being clear about who gets to cross that line, who doesn't, what's the, who gets invited in, like you mentioned, who doesn't get invited in, or what are the criteria for getting into my inner circle.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And we could talk about boundaries all day long. I mean, that is a topic unto itself, and maybe we'll bring that up as a separate topic. But I just want to get back to the main topic at hand here. And I think we've got these three words: discern, determine, and decide. And I'd like to talk a little bit first about discernment, because it's a complex. The word itself is very simple, but it has very nuanced meaning associated with it. The When we talk about raising awareness, what do we really mean by that? What exactly is discernment anyway? What do we really mean by that? And I think we should focus in and really help clarify what we mean by that. Okay? Because I mean, if I'm going through my life in a state of sleepwalker, automaton, a robot kind of thing, and like I said, I've done a fair bit of that in my life. What is my level of awareness? What is my level of consciousness? Does discernment even mean anything to me in that state of mind? And I actually believe I think the question answers itself. But you get my point. What happens as we raise our awareness? I think we start with maybe an awareness of our immediate surroundings. We know what's going on. We're in a particular room. We're in a location and we're doing something. The temperature is such and such. The air is cool. There's a breeze. There's no breeze. There's flowers. There's trees. There's smells. There's all these other things that we can become aware of in our surroundings. And once we get to that stage, then we can say, well, how am I reacting or responding to these surroundings? How am I in relation to these surroundings? What's going on within me? And when I bring my awareness inside, then I start thinking perhaps about the sensations I feel in my body. Maybe if I can hone in and focus my attention, I might even notice my breathing to start with. Or maybe I'll notice the flow of my blood. Maybe I can actually feel my heart pumping or hear it in my ears or something. Do you see what I'm saying? All of these things are levels of awareness. So at what point does my awareness get to the stage where I can now start discerning things? That's kind of an interesting transition, don't you think? There's a difference between simple awareness and starting to discern stuff. So let's talk about discernment and what it really means in terms of our process for conscious choice.
It's interesting what you're saying about the levels of awareness, because I feel like even even if we're sleepwalking through life, there is still a sense of I like it, I don't like it. And for
Exactly.
me personally, I think about discernment as it's for me, it's not for me. And I think, I like to distinguish discernment from judgment, because I feel like judgment is like, it's right, it's wrong. And really, I believe everything's happening for us, even if we don't like what's happening. And so at the lower levels of awareness, I think it's pretty safe to say most people have a sense of what they like and what they don't like. As we're raising in those levels of awareness, I feel like we take it less personally, or we learn to take it less personally. We learn, the ego starts to step out of the equation more so. We might still get triggered. We might still have that, I don't like this, or this is good or bad. We might still have those moments. And in the higher levels of awareness, when we're using that discernment from a place of, okay, I see something that's happening here. Is this really for me? Or I have a choice, right? Is this for me or is it not for me? And I'm not going to take anything personally, either way, and I'm going to show up and I'm going to express. And the other person, it's not personal about the other person, it's just not in alignment with me. To me, that's discernment at higher levels of awareness. So I think that it's always available to us. In the lower levels of awareness, maybe we're not necessarily thinking about it that way or using it that way. And I think that generally speaking, we're pretty, humans are pretty good at figuring out what they like and what they don't like.
Right. Sarah.
For me, it's about feeling. As you were saying, Gail, I like it, I don't like it. It resonates, it doesn't resonate, whatever terminology you like to use. And it is a form of judgment. It's a form of understanding, but it's still being able to step back and almost see it from the outside rather than being on the inside. Because from the inside is when we can be triggered, when we find ourselves reacting, when we find ourselves saying yes to things we want to say no to, and then regretting it, and either letting people down really badly or doing something we don't want to, because we're honorable, but we haven't been honest with ourselves or the other people. So for me, it is about being able to take that step back, to be able to understand and look fully at what it is. If you can't, and coming from that place, that childhood place of, that's how I dealt with it before, that's how I'm going to deal with it now. It's being able to take that step back, to be able to look from the outside in rather than from being in that place of panic in some cases for some people, depending on what's going on and how much pressure you feel you're being put under. It's being gentle with yourself. And if it's a no, having the courage to say that. And I really do feel that, as you're saying, Sir Gail, life is happening to us and for us. It's not against us. And if we have the courage to say no, that can actually be a major gift to the individual who hears it, as well as being a gift to yourself. And so, yes isn't always the best thing to say for the other person as well as yourself. So when you think about what is right for you, understand that and are honest with that, you can actually be benefiting more than just yourself.
Right.
Beautifully
I think
said.
that's a really good point, Sarah. And I want to go back to what Gail was saying about, is this right for me? Is this for me? Is this so forth? On one level, there is only me, because we are all one. And so that really is the question to ask. But on another level, we can say, what is the greater good? Or, as we posited in a previous episode, what would love do now? And if we can, so I'm coming back to this idea of discernment now. To me, discernment has to do with becoming aware of the fact that there are levels of awareness, and becoming aware of the fact that awareness can be aware of itself. That is something that cannot happen until I start the process and bring my level of awareness upward. And the other thing that's important is, if I wish to make a choice about something, I can't really be choosing at the same level of awareness in which the choice come into my awareness. Do you see what I'm saying? I know it sounds confusing. I'm using the word awareness a lot. I have to elevate my awareness to a higher level and then make my choice from there, because that choice is going to have an impact on the outcome. If there's a problem that I'm seeing, for example, or if something else is happening that I'm trying to deal with, I have to raise my energy level. Okay. And so, you know how when the universe decides, okay, it's time to throw a curveball here, so now a curveball comes at me. What do I do with it? You see, it's coming out of left field. It's not something I was expecting. Now what do I do? Scott, jump in there, buddy.
Well, I was going to thank you, and you really brought up that when I hear discernment, and Gail, I when you're talking lower levels of kind of an automatic response, to me that's kind of it's deciding the entire process right away without any kind of thought. To me, discernment is subtle, and David encapsulated that very, very well by saying, when we have a situation, if we take that breath, raise our awareness a little bit higher, see it perhaps from a different perspective, to be able to that subtle shift in just understanding that it isn't in the choice that I'm making, in the way that I'm looking at it. It's very you're seeing it as a whole rather than just a part or a reaction. Um, and by the way, thank you for sharing the story about the horse. If anyone out there has done Reiki, if you've ever done Reiki with a horse, you'll understand the amazing earth energy that a horse has. It is one of the most incredible feelings. And when you ask permission and they give it, that's a lot of trust. But the discernment is more of a subtle thing the higher you go, depending on what it is you're trying to work through. And the deciding, and this is our next step. After you look at something, and you have to make a decision, whether it's you have a multiple choice question or a true false, right? With all the complexities that we have that get thrown at us, the deciding. David, you said that there is a definition of decide is to kill all other opportunities.
No, that wasn't me. I didn't say that. Someone else said
Oh,
that.
okay. Well, you had said that it can be looked at that way, and that decision, and that's where the judge comes in. I've always found I had to work very, very hard myself at not being judge, jury, and executioner with each and every thing that came in front of me. And so when I took that step back, that judgment wasn't just automatic because I was using my past life experiences rather than what was in front of me and not being present. And so that deciding part is, for me, sometimes the hardest. And that's because when I'm deciding, I'm trying to take into all aspects of the problem I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to see how it's going to affect what is going to happen a year down the road, 5 years down the road, or in the next 10 minutes. And that decision, that kind of judgment call, as we all say, right? Our new earth leaders, if it comes from here, you're going to get a much better answer in the decision, not the hanging judge. It's kind of that judge that really comes at you with compassion and through compassion in that way.
I think, first of all, I think what people have to understand is each of us has the opportunity. Choice is presented to us continually in every single moment. That's really what I want to say. It may not always seem like that, but if you pause for a moment and say, what choices do I have available? Or I like to think of them not so much as choices, but options. What are my options right now? And then as I raise my awareness and my discernment and so forth, I can now determine which of those options is best for me in this moment. Now, there may be other options that I can't see right now. They might be beyond my visibility and my current perspective, but that's okay. I still have these options available, and I can choose what feels like the right one. based on my level of awareness, my level of consciousness, my level of discernment. And now I can say, all right, I'm going to choose this one. Well, now what happens is there's an instant feedback mechanism, right? Maybe it isn't instant. Maybe it'll actually be down the road a ways. But in any event, sooner or later, I'm going to get some feedback that tells me, oh, maybe that was not the right choice for me. Okay. That doesn't mean I'm a flawed human being or a bad person or anything like that. It means that choice wasn't right for me. That's all it means. So now I am now in a new place. I can now see that that choice didn't work. And now I can reevaluate. I can discern again. I can look at my options and I can determine. Maybe I'll look and I'll say, you know, this still is the best choice, even though it didn't give me the best results before. But now I have more information that I didn't have. And I might decide to go with that choice again anyway. But I can't make those determinations if I don't pause, if I don't look at my options, if I don't raise my level of awareness. And that's what the whole point of this conversation is. Now, that might seem like a lot of work. Do I want to pause in every single moment and make a new choice? Of course not. You know, on some level, you're going to trust. You're going to gain the ability. Your trust muscle is going to get stronger, and you're going to be more confident in your choices as you get better at this. That's really what's going to happen. And what does confidence mean? It means with faith. That's what it means. So if you do something in a state of confidence, you are doing it with faith that the result is going to be according to your intention, according to what you're attracting into your life. That's what this whole thing is all about. But you can't get there until you start practicing. That's really what I want to say. And I'm not done, but I'll pause for now.
I was making notes as you were talking, but then as you continued talking, I was like, yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say. I mean, I think about the decision piece, right? That decide piece. And yes, it's, I think the actual translation, I think it's a Latin word, and the actual translation is to cut off or to kill off all options. Right? We have infinite possibilities and infinite options. When we decide, we pick a path.
Right.
Doesn't mean we have
in the language of quantum physics, it would be what is it? Collapsing the probability function.
Sure. Right. Right. And that doesn't mean that we're now committed forever to that path. And I loved what you said, David, about, I'm not going to say it the same way, but really how I was thinking about it is we make decisions from default energy or sourced energy, or, you know, you could call it from automatic or empowered, or from fear or love. And in those different levels of awareness, fear might be running the show. And we don't take that pause to decide. And we're just sort of reacting to life happening. In a choice that's more conscious, we might still make a decision from that default or from that fear-based place, like you were saying, David, but we've consciously chosen it. We've gone through a process of discernment to determine our choice. And it's exactly that. It's that awareness piece of, and responsibility, right? Taking responsibility for the choices that we're making versus just, I'm just, life is happening and I'm reacting and I'm hanging on by a thread and I'm doing the best that I can. And sometimes we're literally in that space, and I have no judgments against that, because trust me, I've been there. Right. I've been there. And sometimes you're just trying to survive, right? In places where we're able to then have the safety and the space to practice making conscious choices, you're right. Like, it starts to get easier the more you develop a level of mastery around it. And it can happen like that. In the beginning, though, it really is about slowing down, evaluating, and trusting, trusting and moving in faith, and knowing that even if you make a choice from fear or from default, or it seems to be not the right choice, that really there are no wrong choices. It's just, okay, I made this choice, this is what happened. Do I want to continue down this path, or am I ready to try something different?
Right. Beautiful. Sarah, I'd like to hear from you now.
For me, I think about the fact that we have a certain amount of information when we are making a choice. And we make that choice from the information that we have. Now, we could try researching and researching and researching, and a lot of people sort of want to do things and they just keep doing loads of stuff to so-called make it happen, and it never happens. We get to the point where it's time to make a decision, it's time to act, it's time to move forward. It may not be the right choice, but it is the right choice, because if you've acted from the best intention with the information that you've got, whatever that intention may be, but it's the best, you're thinking, okay, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. That's determining what you feel is right for you, the right way to go. And then suddenly more information appears because you've made your choice.
Yeah, right.
You've taken your action because you have moved forward. That information probably wouldn't have come forth without you doing that. And as each of you have said, it's then your choice as to whether you continue that route or you take that information and you think, right, now, do I take a different path? And it's thinking about paths, if you like. I've chosen a path. Have I gone the right way or have I gone the wrong way? Or is it just a slight detour to learn a little bit more so that I can then take the next path off that will bring me back onto the path I should have been on? But I couldn't get there without doing that first.
Right.
So nothing is ever a waste. The only waste is sitting on the fence and letting life decide, rather than you having the control of making the decision for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that a lot. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. You just summed that up beautifully. We all make decisions and when we get to that point, based on experience, based on where we've been. And when you are heart-led, as we have all tried to be and try to be more so, we find that we keep going back to that path that is meant. Those experiences, the old axiom that no job is a bad job. You just learn how sometimes you don't want to do things, or what you don't want to do with your life. All of those things, those experiences we've had. But it's really that ability to go walk forward in that confidence, to make the confidence to make the choice to begin with. Because we've already discerned, yes, we have to make a choice. Now let's see what the choices are. Now we're going to determine. Now being open, and I think this is a level of awareness, as Gail had much said in yourself, David, is that the level of awareness determines, hey, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe you're much more conscious of, oh, wait a minute, this was kind of silly. I shouldn't have done that. Sometimes we do things automatically, and then we look, say, where did I put my car keys? Wait a minute. You do things automatically without thinking, and you're not aware of what you're doing. And in the same way, that consciousness, that presence, that it all comes back to the same thing. And a lot of these things that we talk about all has to do with, we say awareness, but it's just being in the present moment, being aware of what's around us, being able to take in as much as possible while we're here. And in making this decision, and we talked about kind of decision making process, how do we get to the best outcome? Well, I made a decision at 20 that I wouldn't have made at 30, and I absolutely wouldn't have made it 40. But now that I'm 60, I might make that decision again. So you just never know. It all depends on where you are, how you are, what position you're in, and what level of awareness and growth that you are in your experience in life.
Right. You know, you remind me of, I guess, the story. I think it was about Thomas Edison, who supposedly, you know, he made 10,000 tries before he found a light bulb that worked, or something like that. And I don't know if that's really true or not. It doesn't matter what the number is. But of course, when somebody commented on, you had 9,999 failures before you had one success, he says, no, that's not true. What I really found was 9,999 ways that didn't work. And if I hadn't tried those 999,000, I would never have got to the 10,000th. And that's really the important lesson in that statement. Now, I don't know what the number is. It doesn't matter what the number is, but I can guarantee you this. The first try was probably the most colossal failure. And then he took what he learned from that first try and he tried something different and got to the second try. And I'm sure he made some kind of progress, even if it was only to find out this was a bigger disaster than the previous one. Each one of those pieces of information was feedback that fed into the next decision, just as Sarah was saying. You go down the path, oh, ran into an obstacle, let's see what we can do. Go around it, climb over it, go through it, dig underneath it, whatever you need to do, or even destroy the obstacle, whatever it might be. But you make your choice based on the information that you have now, and every failure, we want to call it that, is another data point. Okay? And so I want to come back to what Gail was saying about responsibility. Every choice I make, I am responsible for the outcome of that choice and for every ripple that comes off of that choice. Every side effect, every unintended consequence, all of it is my responsibility. And if I'm not willing to take responsibility, then I am not really living my true life. Some of those consequences are going to be wonderful and delicious and fabulous, but every once in a while you're going to have a consequence that maybe you didn't want. So what you need to be doing at that point is looking at your life and saying, all right, so this led to this consequence, which really is not what I wanted. Is there another way I could have done this that would have led to the same outcome that I was looking for, but not created that side effect? That's what the whole response ability is all about. It's about looking at what happens, incorporating the feedback into your awareness, into your knowledge, into your experience, and now bringing forth a slightly evolved version of yourself to make the next choice. That's what this whole process is about. And the third thing and the final thing I want to say about this is, even when I make a choice that involves some other person, I make an agreement with him or her, I make a commitment of some kind, as Sarah said at the beginning, sometimes I say yes when really my heart is saying no. Well, just because I have done that, I have said yes, and I've gone along with something, I've made a commitment, I made an agreement, I may at some point realize, I wasn't really honoring my truth. And now I can go back to that person, I can say, I love you, I care about you, and I really want you to be happy. And I noticed that I made that choice not from a truth about myself, but because I was more concerned about what you thought of me, or whatever the truth might be. It might not be like that, but you see what I'm saying? So you're taking responsibility of your choice, and you're taking responsibility for everything that happens to you and to anybody else. in the course of that choice. That's what this is all about. And you cannot have that level of responsibility if you're not working on higher levels of awareness and discernment.
And David, that almost sounded like transcendence. So I know you have that question about the word, but in all of this, responsibilities that we have to ourselves, to those people around us, to those decisions we make, it's a constant, and we all do that. Our life changes, our life situations change, those people in our life change, and it is that ever evolving. And my dad, right before he died, he was always, "Why should I change in how I think or what I do? Because I've been doing the same thing for 60 years. Why should I bother changing?" Well, he taught me the lesson that every single day is changing. Life changes. Uh, my sister believes that nobody likes change. And I kind of raised my hand and I said, well, I do. She says, no, that's not possible. No one likes change. Um, and I accept that change and what you said, David, about making decisions and being responsible for the outcome and being responsible to yourself. I think we've all made decisions where we look at it and go, oh, crap. How do I get out of this one? I really don't want to go to Aunt May's house and have to sit there for 4 hours while she tells me about all of her doilies. But it's those decisions we make through our life in how it affects everybody around you and your awareness of it, and discerning whether you should do it, whether it really matters all that much, and making that subtle change sometimes in the course along your journey, as Sarah so beautifully put.
Yeah, thank you for that, Scott. And I would just like to kind of come back to, again, it's languaging for me. The one thing I like people to understand is you don't have to do anything. You don't have to make any choices. You don't have to raise your level of consciousness. You don't have to do anything. There is nothing you need to do. You are perfect just as you are. And I believe that you have a part of you that really wants to expand and grow and become ever more magnificent in every single moment. If you are going to allow that part of you to come out into the open, then you might have to do some things in order to facilitate that process. But if you don't want to, well, of course, you don't have to do anything. So just bear in mind that everything comes down to a choice. It's not about have to or must or anything. It's about having the opportunity. It's about saying, wow, there's that possibility out there. If I want to, I could reach for that. I could do that. I get to do that if I choose. This is really important for people to understand. Nobody is obligated to do anything. Sure, we have laws and rules and regulations and so forth. Well, technically speaking, you're not really obligated to abide by those, but there will be consequences if you don't, right? So you have to think about, do I want to deal with those consequences, or do I want to live according to those rules, or do I want to move to another place where they don't have those rules? What do I want to do? What's true for me? And every one of these questions is something that really helps to reveal more and more and more truth about who and what you really are. And that's what this is all about, right?
Trust yourself. Be in that place of trust. And I think when you're in that place of trust, it almost as if your awareness does rise, because you're trusting your feeling, the feeling that's coming potentially from your heart, from your soul. You're trusting maybe intuition, inspiration. What are we listening to? Are we listening to the ego voice? Or actually, are we listening to how, when something comes, how are we feeling about what is going on in our head? Is it head or is it heart? Can we feel the difference between head and heart? And when we make a choice, if we make the choice out of trust and best intention, and it is about our intention. Well, I think with everything that we do, everything that we offer, everything within our life, every word that we say, if our intention is a high intention, a good intention, then we know we're coming from our heart, our soul. And sorry, was that a tail I just saw? I just got sorry. But we're allowed, and yes, perfect. But we are allowed humor within this. We are absolutely allowed humor within all of this. Because yes, we've talked about this with a great amount of seriousness. But do you know what? Allow yourself to find the humor, the lightness in things. Life isn't meant to be all about seriousness.
That's right. Yeah.
And if we can't do anything without it being, everything's got to be serious, we're losing the plot. We really are losing the plot, because life is, if for those of you who've read Conversations with God, we are meant to have humor, lightness, happiness in our lives, and that
Absolutely.
comes from within us.
Yeah.
So maybe it's about not taking life quite so seriously.
Well, they say that the opposite of gravity is levity. And gravity is another word for seriousness, isn't it? And levity is another word for lightness. Anyway, thank you for that, Sarah. I know you're going to have to get going here shortly, so I was just wondering if you want to say any final words before you go.
I think I've probably just said it's about trust. It's about yourself. It's about the lightness, the humor, and maybe if we step outside of the seriousness of some things, and it's just like, actually, can we have some fun with this?
Exactly.
And I love the fact that animals remind us of that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Take care, folks. Thanks. I'll see you all again soon.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Bye.
So, Gail, how about you? Would you like to share a few final words before we close out?
Yeah, and the cats are in the house today. I don't know if you've been hearing on my audio. My cat's trapped in the office with me. She wants to get out. So
Oh,
they're weighing in. The animals are weighing in today. Yeah, I love this question. David, I think it was you that was saying, what's true for me? And really that is leading from your heart, leading from your soul, versus living and leading through life according to somebody else's agenda. And when we're making choices from that space of what's true for me, that's when the magic happens. But it definitely takes some courage, right? It takes some commitment. It takes faith. And I also love, David, that you said, you don't have to do anything. And I guess my final thought around that in particular is, we create our reality whether we're aware of it or not. And I know for me, like, it's far more fun and alive to do that from a conscious place.
yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Gail. And Scott, how would you like to sum up your perspective on today's topic?
On choices, finding our voice. All of what we talk about is speaking from the heart, finding your heart, coming back down out of your head and into your heart space, to be able to speak your truth, to be able to kind of live through that. And what I think we've all found is that when you start living that way, life becomes much more enjoyable. Um, People are trying to find happiness. Well, try and find the joy in your heart, and you'll find the happiness. And that trust that Sarah talked about, that confidence that David talked about, that awareness and the levels of awareness that Gail really talked about. You don't have to do anything, but if you want your life to be that much better, that much brighter, that much more joyful, start following that. It's not hard. We do it a little bit at a time, and we all can do that.
Right. A little bit at a time. Baby steps. You know, wasn't it Lao Tzu that said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step?
Mhm.
Well, you could be saying that every single moment. The next 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Never mind the fact that you've already gone through thousands upon thousands of miles already. You know, and maybe it's time to pause, turn around, take a look and say, wow, I've really come a long way. And to honor yourself. I don't think we spend enough time just honoring ourselves.
Celebrating your triumphs,
That's right.
however
It's
small.
yep. And even celebrating your mistakes, because every mistake is just an opportunity to learn something new about yourself, right? That's what it really is all about. There is nothing more important in this world than getting down to the deepest truth of who and what you really are. And that's what the entire journey is about. So here we are at the end of our hour, having discussed this notion of discern, determine, and decide. Hope you got something valuable out of it. I'd like to remind you that the recording of this and every other episode that we've done is on my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. So feel free to head over there and watch them and leave comments and do whatever else you like to do. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if you're looking for somebody to support you in your journey and maybe guide you on a particular aspect of your journey, we put all our websites in the chat list there, so you can grab those links and just go and visit and say hello. So I just like to say thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time on Soul Empowerment. Bye-bye.